fleece was white as snow. Hello ukuleles, this is John with My First Ukulele. Have you ever wondered what the difference between major and minor chords are? I'm going to be going over that today in today's lesson. This will be a short lesson, but you should come away with knowing a little bit more about major and minor chords today. Alright, so let's make a major chord today, and let's make a major chord today. That's going to be our first one I want to start with. So A major is finger 2 on fret 2, finger 1 on fret 1 of string 3, and then we have 2 open strings here on the bottom. Sounds like this. Yeah, so that's an A major chord. And I picked this for a couple of reasons, which I'm going to go over in a little bit. Now, I want you to make an A minor chord. So all we do is you just remove the pointer finger that you had on there. So from the ceiling to the floor, you just have frets 2, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that's A minor. Let's go back to A major. A minor. All right, so a couple of things about major and minor chords. Have you ever wondered why they're called major and minor chords? And really the short answer is that there are Latin names for these types of chords, and the major just means that there is basically a larger space between the very first note and what's called the third, okay? And then when you play a minor chord, you actually make that space a little bit smaller. So it's just what they call a half step smaller. So if I'm gonna go into technical terms about the notes that you have an A, you have a C sharp, an E, and then here's an A on top, which is totally optional when you're making a chord, but that's the full A chord. And then the A minor, instead of C sharp, it's C. All right. If you could describe how these sound, how would you describe the A major chord? Okay, now what would you say about the minor chord? Okay, and I'll give you some different chords for context. Let's check out the check out the D major chord. Here's D major. All right. Give it a second. How about the D minor chord? All right. And I'm gonna have you play it in a song in just a second, so you can kind of hear the different effect these chords are gonna have on what's going on. So in every key in music, when I say key, I kind of mean C major. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If you were to put a chord to each one of those notes, then for that entire scale, you basically would have 3 major chords, and then you'd have about 3 minor chords. And then there's an extra one in there. I'm going to go over that with you in the future, and it's called diminished chords. But basically, yeah, our scales are divided almost evenly with major and minor chords. And one is not more important than the other. Major chords are just as important as minor chords. Okay, so let's take a look at the song Mary Had a Little Lamb, okay? And let's just do it in the key of A. And the chords you're going to have on this version are A, major, and then the other chord you're going to have is E7. And E7 is going to be finger 1 on fret 1 of string 4, then fret 2 of string 3. You're going to have an open E, and then fret 2 on the first string. That's your E7, okay? So I might sing, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. That's probably how you're used to hearing the song, right? And then the song would go on and on with different lyrics. Okay, let's change the chords. I want you to make an A minor chord, and then we're gonna still make the E7 chord when we go to the E chord. So without me saying any words, let's just play it first and see how it sounds. So I do this with my students a lot just so they can kind of hear the difference. Now, to our Western ears, I mean non-Eastern countries, for us, some people would say this sounds sad compared to this one, which is major, right? So some people will call minor chords more serious, a little bit less jovial. But in some places in the world, I think the major chords are more dissonant and just sound different. But to our ears, that's what we're kind of used to hearing for major chords. So if we put some words to the minor version of this, I would say, Mary lost her little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary lost her little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Right? You can kind of get into that. It makes sense with the chords that you've got there, right? Okay, so the very last thing I want to do with you on this video is I want you to know what makes up a chord, and so that you know the difference, okay? So the reason I picked the A major is because it's the clearest one if you were to put them in order of the notes within a chord. Okay, so A is going to be your first note. Let's just go with me. We're going to call this the root of the chord. Okay, it's like what the rest of the notes sit on. Okay, so that's A. Next we had C sharp, and we call that usually the third. Okay, and in this case it's a major third, right? And then if we add the E note, we call that the fifth, right? And then when we get to the A note, that's 8 notes away from the original A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we call that the octave. Okay. So just bear with me if that didn't make any sense to you. You've never heard of that before. That is okay. But we've got 1, 3, 5, 8, 5, 3, root, or 1, right? Now if I take it off, if I take the pointer finger off, we've got 1, minor 3, 5th, octave, 5th, minor 3, 1, or root, all right? Another way you can make this is instead of playing the chord, you can actually play it horizontally up and down the neck so you can see the different notes that you have that way. Because whenever I was trying to figure out what chords were made of, I actually learned them first on a piano, so it's kind of a cheat for me. I can see it a little bit easier on a piano than I can a guitar or ukulele, but it's really good to be able to see how it works on one string as well. So let's find the notes on an A string. You've got fret 2, that's going to be your A. And then we need to find C sharp, okay? And it was here, but we need to find it on this string. And so we are going to go to fret 6. That's A, C sharp. And then our next one is going to be E, which is fret 9. And then our very last one here, because we started on fret 2, is going to end up on 14. And you might not have that note on your ukulele if you have a soprano, for instance. Usually they only go up to the octave, which is the double dots for most of the strings. So, but that's 14. Okay, so that was 2, 6, 9, and 14 for the note A or the chord A. Okay, now you can do it here as well. A, C sharp, E, A, and that makes your A chord as well. All right, now if we do that with the A minor chord, we're going to obviously make the A again, and then instead of 6, we're going to go to 5, which is this dot right here. A, C, and then the same notes up here. E, A, E, C, A. All right, and try this with other chords that you have as well. But I'm telling you that when you go from the ceiling to the floor, this one is in the most order of any chord that we have. If I made a B flat chord, that also will work. It's the same shape actually as A. We're just raising it up a little bit, right? So if I play the B flat chord, that will work just as well. Root, third, 5th, octave, right? And you can go minor on that as well. All right, well, I've been John with My First Ukulele, and if you like these videos, hit like and subscribe to My First Ukulele channel below. Hopefully that's opened your eyes a little bit to what chords are and how they can be used. Try experimenting with minor chords and major chords whenever you have your original song that you're playing with, try mixing them up and just seeing what sounds good to you. Have a great day.